Hello, everybody. This is Joe the Lawyer, and welcome to Analog Man Cave. Today, I'm going to get into an interesting question. It was posed by a guy on a blog. His name is Melan. The blog's beyondformalhot.blogspot.com, and I'm going to link to it below. But it's all about this second edition D&D. Is it old school? Is it OSR? Now, he goes into a really interesting discussion. He lays out the differences between first edition and second edition. He comes to the conclusion that second edition is not old school, right? It is not OSR for a lot of different reasons. And it's actually a good analysis. And I'm running my next campaign. I've been talking about here and doing a couple of videos so far and more to come because I'm going to run second edition from a next old school campaign. And so, is the contradiction coming in then, right? So how could I be running the second edition game and I'm an old school gamer and run an old school game, but it's not old school? And this will kind of shock you to realize this, but I agree. Second edition is not an old school game. It's not OSR. And yet I'm going to run it as an OSR game. Go figure, right? Now let's go through the analysis here because Milan does a really good job analyzing the differences between first and second edition. It's a much longer article. He talks about fifth edition and a lot of stuff in there. But you take a look at it, read it at your own time. But here's what I'm going to hit on: the difference between first and second edition is as he describes it, and lay out his argument why second is not old school. So first edition AD&D is a single man's vision about a broad campaign level implementation of D&D. Stylistic quirks and idiosyncrasies, yes, definitely. That's Gygax, right? He had particular interests. He had a little interest in Tolkien, that's true, and other sorts of epic fantasy, and like violent sword and sorcery pulps based on historical warfare. He liked Jack Vance, Robert E. Howard, Fritz Leiber, and he had eclectic tastes and flying saucers and blah monsters, blah blah blah. Yes, so the resulting game world in AD&D has a grittier world with tough, often shady heroes, corrupt civilization, rugged frontiers where laws are stern and might makes right, underground empires inhabited by ancient and malevolent civilizations, and supernatural powers, demon lords, devil princes, gods, and goddesses playing chess with their mortal pawns. A very Fawcett and Grey Mouser way. There was a whole short story about that. There was a lot of strangeness around the edges, too. And the rules integrate these assumptions into their fabric. From very dubious character types, assassins, focused illusionist class, and an ethical code focused on swift dispensation of frontier justice, like giant killing rangers, monks, and paladins. The game's most important rule declares that advancement is found mostly in loot and plunder, gained by hook or by crook. They have to train to advance in level, seek out masters, and a lot of other quirks, right? The mechanics are baroque in their totality, but they can be scaled well. Yeah, and that is shared well with second edition. I like the word baroque. That makes sense. It's just weird. um, game comes with badly edited and rambling but supremely useful DM guide. Absolutely true. Offers solid and wise advice on constructing adventures, setting up complex, interconnected campaign that's more to some of his parts. Perfectly said. The modules are good as well. The ideal of the first edition campaign is not as tightly structured as some interpretations of BX, but it does have an implied arc. From frontier localities threatened by dark forces, characters grow in stature to embark on lengthier and more complex adventures until they can establish domains, embark on extraplanar journeys, or descend into the depths of the earth. There are adventure hooks and modules along the way, but the main drive comes from the players. Yeah, that's the whole sandbox campaign and the endeavors they choose to undertake. This picture is perhaps too optimistic. There was plenty of bad practice around, but this is the campaign format advocated by the rulebooks. It's the main way the game was meant to be played, even if many people didn't. If you had followed instructions on the tin, you'll get a good game. Yes, absolutely agree with all of that. Now, his analysis of second edition. It's a different beast. An attempt to create a new accessible set of rulebooks in place of a game that became overburdened with unwieldy and dubious optional rules and character options. Yeah. Created by committee. Yep. Although it was experienced game designers, yada, yada. Here's the thing. Second edition, he's not talking about it here, but he alluded to it here. A decade's worth of parental and religious criticism about the game. We had the satanic panic, right? You could Google this and find it. TSR wrote up a code of ethics for second edition that everything had to adhere to. Everything had to be heroic. The good guys always had to win out over evil. Assassins couldn't be character classes. Demons and devils can't be called that. They were named Batazoo and some other stupid ass name, right? There was this entire. It's interesting. It's still on the internet somewhere. I used to have it on my blog back in the day, but you could look up the TSR Code of Ethics and you'll see what they had to do and what they couldn't do. So that was. It was deflecting everything from the Satanic Panic to make it more family friendly. They didn't want any kind of crap like that anymore, right? But another good point. Second edition's literary roots lie in heroic high fantasy, the popular trilogies, quadrilogies, pentalogies, interesting, of the 70s and 80s. Yes, yep, true. Tolkien, Feist, Shannara books, best-selling AD&D branded novels set in Dragonlands and Forgotten Realms were as much a part of the background as things like the Belgariad, Shannara, the Chronicles of blah blah blah. Yeah, that's how it was. It was all high heroism, right? Rent fair aesthetics and all this stuff. It was a cleaned up edition on 3 levels. First, it whitewashes the moral ambiguity, earnest violence, and weirdness of the earlier game. That's what I said before. It's because of that stupid code of ethics they had. It's squeakier, cleaner, and a little milk toast. Assassins and half orcs are gone. Those they did come later in the complete handbooks of whatever the hell, which some of them are good, most of them kind of stunk. Rangers and bards lost their flavor, not to the game's benefit. But here's what he says: third aspect is beneficial. The cleanup is easier to grok, easier to understand. It has more coherent mechanics, a rudimentary but functional skill system, and a combat system that moves from attack tables to Thaco. All right. Now, badly explained, yep, but ultimately quite easy formula. Okay. Absolutely true. So, what he's talking about here is cleaner rules, less interesting rules. And he gets into the DM guide for the second edition was useless. Absolutely. I never looked at it. We just always used first edition book, DM guide. And one thing they talked about, though, in that book was that all of the all the experience in second edition was, it wasn't based on killing stuff and how much gold did you loot. It was based on other things. It was basically based on all of the character goals and what did they do and all these strange kind of things. It's more like what you see now in fifth edition kind of stuff, right? So then he goes into the product line. I don't remember a good second edition module. I could not name a good second edition module. I can name every single first edition module, but not the second edition. Another main difference, the playing culture surrounding second edition is not simply a diluted version of first editions, but a hotbed of bad practice which will harm your games. Massively overwritten encounters, dungeons reduced to a flat and boring hack and slash, and a cabinet contents design, blatant railroading. Dragonlance started that. Contrived attempts at forcing AD&D into game styles it couldn't support well. And then he gets into things that it did well. Okay, a couple of things that AD&D did well, second edition era did well, was all the different settings. Alkadim, Ravenloft, Dark Sun, right? They were all good things. So let's break this guy's argument down, all right? He talks about style, right? He talks about the feel of the books that the based on. Then he talks about the rules and he talks about the adventures. Now, I can't paint him not using any of the adventures, any of the modules. They all sucked. So he's right in that regard. As to style, that is completely up to the dungeon master, right? I can make second edition into a gritty game. I can make it into an airy fairy game. I can make it into a high heroism game. I can make it into a Dark Ages game, whatever I want, because the rules are completely, in the hands of a good DM, the rules are completely separate than the style of play. What he does talk about, okay, is that the thing we agree on here is that the game mechanics, the chassis, is a cleaned up version of first edition. Okay. So while second edition, as written, with everything included in it, I would not consider it OSR in feel or style at all. But the second edition chassis, the mechanics of second edition can definitely be used to make an OSR style game. Okay. The gritty feel, the dirtiness of first edition and Gygax's older games, you can definitely include that and make a second edition game with that feel. It's easy. I'm going to do it. I'm doing it right now, right? All the things that he talks about that they eliminated, you could just include. I'm including so much my references that I'm using for this second edition game. I'm drawing things from everywhere, from Castles and Crusades, from some of the newer books, from Cthulhu, from Joe Block's books. All his he has a new Cthulhu book out. I'm taking stuff from Hyperborea, Astonishing Swordsman and Sorcerer's Hyperborea. I'm taking things from Savage Worlds. I'm drawing from all resources that I have. So the second edition, as I'm using it, it's just a chassis. All right. My house rules are already that I'm handing out to the players like 15 freaking pages long. But let me just give you a sample. I'm going to do a house rules video at some point, right? But I'm going to give you just a quick sample of, not the nitty gritty, but how the change, what I'm doing for changes, right? No level limits for demi-humans, but they're going to get an XP penalty. Elves and dwarves, 20% XP penalty. Halflings and gnomes, 15. Half elves, 10%. On top of all things, okay? You're going to have several subclasses, some of which are playable, some of which aren't. All right. Eliminating bards. Why? Because they're stupid. They've always been stupid. They always will be stupid. Screw bards. All right. Paladins, they either follow Torm or Tyr, and I'm giving them some different damage bonuses as they level up. If they're going against evil things, they are getting a smite, basically. All right. Mages, I'm getting them basically everything we did back in the day. No upper level limit on this, a number of the spells they can learn. I'm giving them some cantrips. I'm bringing in things from Philotonomy's old blog. I'm giving a priests. There's going to be no base cleric class. I'm bringing everybody is going to be a priest of a specific god with everything that comes from that, from the Forgotten Realms books. Remember those Forgotten Realms books that had priests of each god, had different abilities they could use, different weapons they could use. All right. Thieves no longer suck. I'm giving them much higher starting scores and more points to distribute at first level and at each level as well. Rangers are getting that same exact thing, basically. They're getting more points that they can distribute at every level, and also to start off with, giving us extra bonuses. I'm bringing back some of their, Rangers of the Wilderness defending, going against giants or some special creatures, right? I'm doing simplified combat. Group initiative. I'm not doing this stupid ass weapon speed stuff. I'm having rules in there for shields shall break. No, I'm doing group. Basically, you're dead at -3 plus a level down to a max of -10. I'm throwing in ricocheting fireballs, ricocheting lightning bolts, and expanding fireballs. I'm throwing in some critical tables. Like I say, I'm bringing in every class is going to get cantrips, from druids to wizards to clerics. All right. And I have them already built out there. You're getting XP for killing stuff, for the gold value of non-magical items brought back to a safe location. And then once in a while, you're going to get mission completion or milestone type of awards. You're going to have to go back in town to rest. And of course, you're not getting the stupid long rest from 5th edition and all that stuff. You have to do some level of training. And these are just some of the basic second edition house rules that I'm bringing in for it. Okay. But everything else, though, that he talks about, I'm not using the modules, and all the rest of it is just feel. I'm going to bring in, the demon summoning spells and the creepy shit from Cthulhu. And I'm bringing in all the darker, grittier aspects of first edition. Because that's up to me as a DM. It's not up to the rules to tell you how to run your game. It's up to the DM to figure out what is the best rule chassis to run the game that you want to run. And for me, it's second edition. Part of it also is nostalgia. We had a lot of great times in college and post-college playing second edition. And I'm going to be playing this with my brother, my friend Dwayne, and a guy, Pete, who we used to play with back in the college days. And I'm also bringing in some of the old school guys. So it's going to be interesting because the old school guys are like, oh my God, that's a lot of rules. They're used to playing BX or whatever, old school essentials. And the other guys are used to playing 5th edition lately. Haven't played that in 27 years, I think. We haven't played second edition. So it's a happy medium, essentially. It's a compromise game. Nobody's exactly happy with it, but everybody's going to come together and hope it really works out. So it'll be a good time. But again, Melan's post here, it's very good. He has a great description. And like I said, I agree with him. First edition is old school. Second edition is not old school, but can second edition be made old school? Absolutely. I'm doing it. Old school is not a rule set. It's a style and feel. Hell, I ran a fifth edition game with a good old school style and feel as much as fifth edition allows for it. I brought that I talked about a whole video about my fifth edition house rules. I think it was my brother and I did a fire pit show discussing them. And people have said, yeah, that does make it more old school, definitely in style. But the best systems for old school games, the best chassis are the older games. I mean, fifth edition does have some limitations in how old school you can make it without stripping so much away that's no longer fifth edition. Whereas second edition, you can do it. It's simple. It's very, very simple to do. All right. So I am running second edition because I'm going to make an old school game out of it. It's a good chassis. It's a fun system. We had a lot of great times running it, and it's a more coherent version of first edition. Can we bring in all the old stuff from back in the day from first edition and made it grittier? It's easy. It's a matter of spells. It's a matter of different class abilities. And it's a matter of the DM just running a game with much grittier style, feel. That's all it is, and shit, the rules get in the way of that. You change the rules. So that's what house rules are all about. All right. I'll go over my house rules in another video at some point, but I wanted to get this out there because it's sort of a timely post, guys. Okay. Well, thanks so much for listening. If you like this video, please hit the like, subscribe button, and maybe throw a comment in there. It helps with the algorithm and whatnot. And also, this is a part of the Tankers Taverns Substack. He's put out he's basically doing a newsletter on Substack, and there's going to be a link below. And it's a bunch of old school guys who were doing videos in this Tavern Network, basically the Tavern Video Network, TVN, right? And so every week you subscribe to this thing, and you're going to be able to get an email saying, "Oh, here's the latest posts from all the old school, YouTubers in the Tavern Network." You don't miss out on anything. You get, I think I'm in there, Matt Jackson's in there, the Greyhawk Ragnar's in there, Rob Connolly's going to be in there when he starts doing videos soon. So you're going to have all that, okay? So subscribe to that thing. It's the link will be below, along with all the other links that for this blog post and for my other links to get in contact with me. So hope you enjoyed it, and thank you very much, guys, for sticking around this long. Throw a like, subscribe, and hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.